Hi there, hope you're having a pleasant day wherever you may be. I am currently on the road to destinations sort of unknown. I really only have one goal of this trip, and that is to be somewhere in the path of totality of the August 21st, 2017 Great American Solar Eclipse. Crowds are expected to be huge for this eclipse. A lot of small towns are going to be inundated with sun gazers. So yeah, we're gonna see where I can get to, and hopefully I can get somewhere on that 70-mile path of the eclipse. So without further ado, let's stay on the road here. We'll start this adventure in northern Montana at Glacier National Park. So here I am in Glacier National Park. It's a little hazy. I guess there's some local fires, but the view still is pretty nice, pretty gorgeous, but it's definitely sort of muted, I guess you could say. So water created a sort of V-shaped valley. Then the glaciers came in and filled in that V-shaped valley, and they carved out the U. They receded, left us with this feature here. That's where a lot of these features of Glacier National Park come from. Contrary to belief or conventional wisdom, Glacier National Park does not derive its name from glaciers currently in the park. Although it does have some, it derives from the glaciers that created its features. Don't worry, I fell for it too. Now, despite the fact that Glacier National Park doesn't derive its name from glaciers within the park, that doesn't mean that the fact that they're receding is any less significant. It is kind of a sad thing to know that we're seeing just a fraction of what the amount of glaciers that there were when the park was first established. One of the marquee features of the park is the Going to the Sun Road. It's a 50-mile journey that takes you from one end of the park to the other, east or west, west or east, depending on which way you start. It's a beautiful drive, gorgeous, and I'm even seeing it kind of muted. It's kind of hazy today, as you can see behind me. So not the greatest conditions for visibility, but it's still gorgeous. Now, if you're driving, it is a windy road, goes along some narrow ridges. So, pay attention to the road so you don't die. But there are a lot of places to pull out over and take some pictures, things like that. If you don't want to drive, you have a couple of options. One is the free National Park shuttle. You're pretty much standard run-of-the-mill shuttle, just gets you from point A to point B and goes pretty much the length of the route. Or another option is the red bus tours, which are not free. You need a reservation for those. But they're guided tours. They have narration in classic old cars. They're like extended vans kind of thing. But they're really cool to look at. You see them all up and down the road. I keep passing them, so there's a lot of them if you wanted to do that. But that's one way to do it. It gives you a little bit of background and information while also seeing the beautiful scenery. They stop at various places, let you take some pictures. So yeah, that's another option. Overall, Glacier National Park was beautiful, and I would love to revisit it to explore more of what it has to offer. Next, I head south to mostly Wyoming. Yellowstone Park was established in 1872, made officially part of the National Park System when that was established in 1916, and so it's considered the first national park in the U.S. Large geographically, it spans over 3 states, although Montana and Idaho have little fringes. The majority of it's in Wyoming. Back in the late 1800s, this was the main entrance into Yellowstone Park. So they built the Roosevelt Arch in 1903. Makes you wonder, what do they got in there? King Kong? Now, in a large portion of the park, you're in a large caldera. And anyone that has the Discovery Channel or an internet connection has heard about the Yellowstone supervolcano last erupting somewhere in the neighborhood of 640,000 years ago. In that caldera region, you're constantly reminded of the geologic, geothermal activity that's going on. You have big examples like Old Faithful, and little examples like this little vent here that are just all over the place. There's places just littered with it. Steam coming everywhere. It's really cool, actually, but it is a little dangerous. You're not allowed to walk close to them. This is as close as you can get because there's a little sign right here that says not to go. It's because the ground's unstable. Now all this geothermal activity is related to a hot spot that's underneath our feet here. Yellowstone is not unlike the Hawaiian Islands. Um, Yellowstone is actually part of a series of volcanoes that extend into Nevada, and that's because the North American tectonic plate is shifting in that direction. And slowly but surely, a volcano pops up, the ground moves over, pops up again, and right now we have Yellowstone. The geothermal activity beneath our feet does present itself in a handful of ways. One is an event like this. It has a name, can't think of it off the top of my head. Then there's the geysers. Then there's the hot pots, the mud pots, and then there's also the springs. The springs are the big colorful pools. So a lot of interesting stuff going right beneath our feet. Another one of the marquee features of Yellowstone is, of course, Old Faithful Geyser. Everybody knows it, and of course everybody goes to go see it. Hordes and hordes of tourists. Finding a parking spot there was a challenge. But it was cool. Put on a good show. Anywhere from 40 to 120 minutes, I think, it'll go off. Even though it was kind of a pain in the butt trying to fight the hordes and hordes of tourists, it was pretty cool seeing it in firsthand. I'm here at the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, and behind me is the lower falls of the Yellowstone River. It's one of the marquee, often photographed, one of the cliche Yellowstone images, so I had to come check it out. It's beautiful, gorgeous canyon, gorgeous falls. Now, in addition to all of the geologic activity, there's a ton of wildlife as well. So far on this trip, I've seen bison, and I've seen some bison too. No, actually I did see a few elk and things like that. So there are other animals here, but there's definitely the bison here. That's one thing I was looking forward to seeing, and I'm glad I was able to see a few of them. Some of them just hang out on the side of the road. It's really awesome. I was hoping to get one of those moments where a herd of them crosses the road in front of me, but whatever. You can't win them all, right? Yellowstone is a pretty amazing national park. The one thing I did notice right off the bat, though, is the sheer size. If you're gonna come here, don't try to see it all in one day. You can't. Everything's just so far apart. There's so many things to see. Spend a few days here. Really take it in. Spend a week if you need to, but yeah, it's a really cool place. Just south of Yellowstone National Park is Grand Teton National Park. The main feature of this one is, as you guessed it, the Grand Tetons. Now, the Grand Tetons are the results of a fault that runs along the edge there. On one side of the fault, it was thrust up, made the mountains. The other side thrust down, made the valley. And then in addition to that, glaciers kind of came through and carved out some of the valleys and even provided the area for where some of the lakes are. Geologically speaking, the Grand Tetons are a relatively young mountain range, especially in comparison to the nearby Rocky Mountains. But interestingly enough, the material that makes up the mountain range is actually old in comparison. Some of the oldest rocks around are what comprise the Grand Tetons, despite the fact that they weren't yet a mountain. And behind me here, that peak right there, that's actually the Grand Teton. Didn't know that was a thing. I thought they were just all the Tetons, but there's a Grand Teton. It's nice. And in addition to that, there's even the Grand Teton Glacier. One of a handful of glaciers that are in the park, but yeah, that one's right there, right for everybody to see. Like all glaciers and all the other parks, and all those around the world, it is depleting. Over the last several years, pictures have documented that it's receding. All in all, the Grand Tetons are a really beautiful area to come check out. It's kind of one of those car visit parks for the most part, or at least it can be. You're basically just going to drive along the length of the Grand Tetons and take pictures. There are trails, there's a lake that you can boat in, and things like that. But if you really wanted to just come and take some pictures, it's a great place. I really recommend it. Next, I head to Utah to Promontory Summit. So this is the point where the Golden Spike was driven. This is where the Transcontinental Railroad was completed on May 10th, 1869. This was a pretty huge achievement back in the day. It was probably on par with landing on the moon for us in more modern times. So this was a huge thing. It transformed the country, helped it grow, made the journey from East Coast to West Coast days instead of months. It really spurred the westward expansion of the country. In addition to rail travel, there were telegraph lines along the same stretch, so it was equally important to communication as well, not just people and goods being transported. They do a reenactment of the ceremony every Saturday and major holidays. Unfortunately, they have a busted rail, so they were unable to bring out the two locomotives, 119 and the Jupiter, but you're able to access them in the engine house, so you can still get a look at them, but they weren't a part of the ceremony, unfortunately. I'm currently on the West Auto Tour. It's about 7 miles from the Golden Spike Visitor Center. It's a gravel road, but as far as I can tell, this road looks like it's on the old grade of the tracks. So I'm pretty sure I'm on the old Transcontinental Railroad right now. Plus or minus 150 years and with no rails or anything, but still, that's pretty freaking cool. Now, this is really, really cool. I'd always heard the story that they laid down 10 miles of track in a single day while building the Transcontinental Railroad. Broke the record. Little did I know it was here in Promontory Summit. I always assumed it was in the flatlands of like Nebraska, something like that, where terrain was easy. But no, it was here. Turns out what happened is that the two railroads, as they were getting closer to each other, there was a fierce competition. The Union Pacific from the east, they laid down 8.5 and said that could never be topped. Central Pacific coming from the west, they thought otherwise. They laid down 10, won a bet between the two, and it was here, immortalized with this sign. Can't even imagine walking 10 miles in a single day, let alone laying 10 miles of intense labor. Now, for the ceremony, back then, they had two officials driving the spike, and they both missed. So then a couple of the head crewmen, they came and actually did the job correctly. So a little bit of trivia for you folks. Golden Spike, about 30 miles off of I-15, a little north of Ogden. So if you're in the area, spend a couple hours over here, take a look. The visitor center's cool, the ceremony was nice, even the little auto tour was pretty cool. So yeah, I'd say check it out if you like history, if you like railroads. It's pretty cool. Next, I head north into Idaho. It only seemed appropriate to stop here on this trip. So here I am at Craters of the Moon National Monument. Now, Craters of the Moon was not created by a single volcanic eruption or crater. No, it was caused by several, what was part of a great fissure here. That over the course of thousands of years, most recently 2000, there were several eruptions from several volcanoes in the area. Now, this whole region is eerily similar to Pisgah crater down in the Mojave Desert, which was on a previous video. It basically has all the features, but with none of the illegality of it, and also paved paths and information kiosks. So yeah, it's a little less wild or rugged. The top of Inferno Cone gives you a really good bird's eye view of not only the park, but of the geologic activity that took place here eons ago. Unfortunately, it's a little hazy today, so you can't really see too far in the distance, but yeah, pretty cool view, very nice. Tough hike, very short but tough because it's steep. You can also visit some lava tubes. This is a very tiny one here, just near the kiosk, but there's a couple larger ones that you can walk, and if you get a permit, you can even explore them. Apparently this is where some of the early NASA astronauts learned about volcanic geology in preparation for the moon landing. However, once they actually got up there, they realized that most of the craters were caused not by volcanic activity, but by meteor impacts. Walking through lava fields is always kind of interesting. You see all these different folds and textures just kind of preserved for eternity. It's really pretty cool. It's interesting.
This is the Idaho Transportation Department Highway Advisory Radio System. If you are driving to location to view the eclipse, to help with traffic flow, arrive early and stay late.
North of Idaho Falls now. I expected crowds galore. This is the most deserted I've seen the freeway, so I'm a little worried. I don't know why it worries me, but what's up? What's going on here? Route 33 in Idaho here. And I gotta say, to quote Top Gun, it appears to be a very target-rich environment. I see a lot of places to potentially just pull off the road. Yeah, I think if all goes as planned, I have a feeling this is gonna be where I see the eclipse. Okay, now this is treading on the territory of the surreal. So we're a little more than a day away, and this thing still looks like it's abandoned. Wow, like genuinely shocked by that. I expected there to be at least a car, but not even getting that. Lots of other folks out here, so I'm not the only one here. All right, so I found my spot, and I've got neighbors, which is cool. We're all here to enjoy the same thing together. We're still a couple of hours away, but everybody's starting to wake up that kind of camped out here, and we're starting to see some folks that didn't camp out show up. But yeah, everybody's kind of doing their thing here. To properly view, you're gonna need some special eclipse glasses. They're usually pretty cheap, like $2, whatever. Although I hear they were selling out, so I decided to go for a more premium route, the Planetary Society Bill Nye edition. Hell yeah. The eclipse started about 10-15 minutes ago. Only a little sliver's been taken out, and yeah, just been checking it out with my glasses. Okay, so that's the sun, and this is roughly what it looks like down here. There is sort of a, you know, it is a little dimmer out here. Something's different. Okay, so it's about 11:15, and we're about 18 minutes from totality. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but there is sort of a darkness that's kind of taking over, and the temperature is starting to drop. There was a breeze before, and this breeze that's coming in is a lot cooler now. This is a really weird feeling. It's kind of cool. It's getting exciting now. There's a few people I've talked to. We're just a few minutes, probably less than 5 minutes or so until totality. I don't know how to describe the way it looks. It looks otherworldly. That makes sense? The way it's got this look, just to the, I don't know if you can tell on the camera or not, but yeah, it's really, really cool. We're just a few minutes away. This should be exciting. Definitely. It's got to be tangible on the video now. It's got to be. Okay, last video until probably totality. As totality approached, I walked over to my neighbor's rig to check out a magnified view of the sun. Oh my God! Oh my goodness! Whoa! Holy cow! Oh my gosh! Okay, this is it. Totality. This is amazing. I don't know how else to describe it. I can see stars. Okay, for starters, I get it now. Yeah, you have to be here. This does not capture. It doesn't get it. You have to experience a total solar eclipse. Oh, it's time to put the glasses back on. Look at that. Oh my God. It's so freaking weird. Look at this. So weird light. I feel like I'm in a movie studio. Look, this is so cool.
Ever find yourself believing you're together and discover you're alone?
about 20 minutes removed from totality, and all I can say is, no, really, it was amazing. Every article I read about the eclipse, they all said, I can describe it to you, but you need to experience it. Now that I've experienced this one, I get it. After experiencing it, I totally get why primitive peoples thought that shit was going down. I could see people thinking the world was gonna end. It was such a weird, surreal experience. And then, yeah, when it was totally covered, and I guess it was the corona, couldn't get any pictures of it. Had to see it with my own eyes. It was really cool. Like, it extended out really far. Can't wait to see some of the more high-res pictures. But yeah, total solar eclipse. Like I said, amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, as you can see, a lot of this place is cleared out, but they're all on the road there. It's Highway 33, and it's about 4 miles to I-15, so I am not eager to get into that mess. Thanks for joining me on this trip. I know this one was a little different from the other ones. This one wasn't a region, it wasn't a road. This one was just, I was in the area, wanted to see the solar eclipse, mission accomplished. But I knocked off some other things like Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, even Golden Spike National Monument, then of course Grand Tetons as well. I hope you enjoyed traveling with me as much as I enjoyed doing the traveling. And like I always say, this is not an exhaustive list of things to do in the area. These are just some of the things I hit up, and I thought they were interesting and worth sharing about. So I guess I'll see you guys the next time. Oh, damn it. Total solar eclipse. The cosmic ballet continues. Does anyone want to trade seats? Damn it. Totally missed out on an opportunity, but oh well. I guess I'll remember that one for 2024.